Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the tuning fork session with Susan Maule. I worked with Susan probably about 6 years ago and did the David Howes tuning fork course to become a tuning fork practitioner. And I had it recognized through the International Institute of Contemporary Therapists as well. I registered as a modality. So it was the first modality to be registered here by David Howes in this country. And I've noticed that they've been doing quite a bit of work with other students here in the country as well. So I started off on my tuning fork journey and worked with one-on-one clients and had amazing results from those sessions, and saw a massive difference in how people shifted their emotional and physical elements to helping to people to heal certain aspects of their life. And even just the body tuners, which we can talk about a bit later with Susan, had a massive impact on helping people to relax. Within like 10 minutes of using 10-15 minutes of using the tuning forks on the back of the person as they're lying in front down. And that was huge. Also noticed the pain factor of when using tuning forks and people having pain. It just reduced pain quite quickly in the body as well. And I think we can Susan will verify that she's probably seen some results in people's pain being reduced. Tuning forks they reduce the nitric oxide in the cells, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. And I'll also talk a little bit about how tuning forks work. So I'll just introduce Susan here. I'll just bring up the details. So Susan's been a student practitioner and teacher of the healing arts for over 25 years. She has studied shiatsu, integrated awareness, shamanism, and various forms of hands-on healing energy. Her true focus is sound. Susan is certified master vibrational sound teacher and practitioner and soma energetics with David Howes. She's studied with John Burlew of Biosonics, Julie Andra, is that how I say her name? Of sounding circles and the science of sound, which we're particularly interested in, and also with Geraldine Glass. Susan is also a practitioner of the path to heal, which she combines with a sound session. And Susan is also an American Airlines captain. So welcome, Susan.
Hi. I'm
Great.
glad to be here.
It's an honor to have you here. And you're in the States at the moment?
Yes. And near Philadelphia.
So that's close to New York, isn't it? Is that close to New York?
Yeah. 2-hour drive from, 2-hour drive from New York.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like in between New York and Washington.
Right. Well, welcome, Susan. There is a little bit of a delay, but that's okay. We can sort of manage that. And we've got sorry, what was his name? Jason coming in? Chris, yeah. Sorry. We've got Chris coming in. We're going to do a live session with Chris. Now, Chris hasn't experienced the tuning forks before, so this is going to be really interesting. It's a live demonstration, and he's due in like 10 minutes. So what we're going to do is we'll probably, as soon as he comes in, we'll go straight to that, but then we'll revert back to describing tuning forks and talking a little bit more to Susan, and talking about how Susan does her sessions. We're going to be talking a little bit about John Burlew, Geraldine Glass, and nitric oxide as well. So, so to start off, Susan, so tell me about your journey with the tuning forks and how you got into working with the tuning forks.
Well, I had already been using singing bowls and the Native American flute and, you know, shamanic drumming. And I heard this speaker speak at a holistic fair, and she had a book about different types of sound healing. And one of them was an interview with David and talking about tuning forks. And I go, that's what I'm going to do next. And so I got a hold of them right away. Come to find out, I had met at least Tim a few months before at a thing in Philadelphia. And but I didn't really pay it much attention until I got I read the book. And are we good?
Yeah, I've just realized that I probably need to mute a few people. It's the first time I've done this. So I'm just yeah, okay. All right, carry on.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So continue.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, as soon as I read the book about the tuning forks, I went and I signed up for all their classes and became a teacher like as fast as I could, and then started teaching. And because of the flying, I was able to teach in, well, actually I taught some people in, while I was on a trip to Egypt. I taught them all the book stuff. And then when we got home, I went and met up with them and taught them the practical portion. I've taught in England, France, Ireland, and I was like their traveling teacher. And so I really, really loved the tuning forks. And I had already had a ohm tuner, which is the 136.1. And I don't have it. It looks like this one. And I didn't know what to do with it before, you know, I met them. So I just would do my chakras. And I noticed that it felt like clear. It was like felt open, which, you know, it just felt like you could just feel a difference in just the areas around where I touched with the tuning fork. But it never entered my mind to try other parts of my body or anything. So that's when the real magic started. And so anyway, I did that, and then I started to get into more, well, other singing bowls and other flutes. And so I kind of have done a lot more in that area and other kinds of instruments like monochords and things. But I always travel with my tuning forks because you never know when you might need one. And I always say either the 128 or the 136.1 should be in every single person's medicine cabinet or their travel bag, because you run into the most random places to use it. People you meet, or, you know, you stub your toe, whatever.
So Susan, so when you're flying, when you're piloting an aeroplane, and you're flying over to all these other countries, you take your tuning forks with you?
Yeah. And this is what I used to take the whole Soma energetic set, but after I started studying with John Beaulieu, I pared it down to what John carries, because it was just I just had too much stuff. So now when I go, I take these two C and G tuners, and usually two, like either this one's a 128 or a 136.1. And now the one I have sitting here happens to be, the 128 is a C, and then this is a G that John came out with a couple of years ago. And even though this one wasn't tested with the nitric oxide test that you started to talk about,
Yeah.
the 128 and the 136.1 were, and not all of the forks puff up the nitric oxide. So
Yeah. So
like if some of these high forks, they're not gonna, so like the sun's about the same size if you have the, with the planetary tuners, which I have behind me. And so the forks that are about this size are the ones that are the most effective in really working with the body. The
so
other
we've
ones are fun.
So we've got two styles of forks here. One are weighted and the other one are unweighted. So the weighted ones are the ones that we can use on the body, and the unweighted is the ones that we use for the aura or the auric field or the energy tuners as well. So they're the two different types of forks. You mentioned John Burlew, who was I think I read that book before I started doing training with you, Susan, and it's called Human Tuning by John Burlew. And it was what really spiked my interest in tuning forks was he did an experiment with nitric oxide, and he noticed that the nitric oxide was released in the cells once using the tuning forks. And if I sort of talk a little bit about nitric oxide, then I mean, it's just a whole bunch of, I think the pharmaceutical companies have been spending billions of dollars on working out how to release the nitric oxide in the cells, and then the tuning forks come along and do it in seconds. So you can, the power of these tuning forks are huge. And even just looking at nitric oxide, it just helps the cardiovascular system, the nervous system, the lungs, the gastrointestinal tract, the renal system, and the immune system. It controls vascular tone, dilates the vessels. The nervous system, it acts as a neurotransmitter, including in the automatic nervous system. One of them helps to dilate the pulmonary, I can't even say it, vessels, and regulates the immune system. What else? It helps blood flow, helps the kidneys. So it just goes on and on. If you look up nitric oxide, it just helps so many things. And one of the main things is the reducing of the inflammation, which we all know that once the body becomes inflamed, then it becomes sick. So if we can sort of reduce this with the tuning forks in a matter of seconds, it's just so powerful in itself.
John said when he was in the room, I guess when it happened, and they saw the cells started moving, and he said that all the scientists started putting the tuning forks on their head and getting their brains all jazzed up. So
yeah, and I think I saw you've done, is it you've done some work with Geraldine Glass as well?
yes, during COVID, I discovered her, and I already had the alchemy singing bowls, which usually you see, well, I think you can see one or two behind me. And I'd been working with singing bowls for a long time. But what I liked about her is she was a trained musician singer, and I'm not. So I really wanted to get her take on using the bowls. And so we did some interesting things with toning and like just play the bowl over and over again and tone, and just keep going and going until you finally are kind of in another state. And so I think I took about 6 hours or so with her, and it is very interesting. So
And what's her book called? Because she's got a lot of science in her book. I can't recall the name of the book now.
I have not read her book, but she just came out with some cards, which I just got in the mail. And what's really cool is there's a code on the back. You just hold your phone to it, and then it takes you right to SoundCloud, and then you hear the actual bowl that she was using. So you get like like the first one I pulled was lepidolite, and I have a lepidolite bowl, so that was kind of cool. And then she gives the information about it and gives you a meditation, I think it is, and then
Right.
and then you flip the card over and you hold your phone and you can hear the SoundCloud actual piece.
So she works with more bowls, doesn't she?
Pardon?
She works more with bowls, doesn't she?
Yeah, she pretty much is all bowls.
Yeah. And tell me about David House. He was one of the pioneers of bringing out the chakra system tuning forks, which I was quite fond of using, and especially with a crystal. So you have the client lay on the table, and then you put the crystal on each chakra point, and then you would using the body tuners, you would strike the body tuner, and usually it's on a puck, on a hockey puck, and then you put the base of the tuning fork onto the crystal, which is onto the chakra point, and then just even that was just enough to relax the client. You just go up the chakra system using the different and I had different crystals colors for different points. I didn't bring any of my tuning forks with me, but so we would use that, and it was quite powerful. I mean, the body balancing technique was just 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And David House, which I studied with, he brought out those tuning forks. Can you tell us a bit about David and how you met him?
Well, I met him from reading that book, and then they taught right at their house at that time. So I went to Ohio, and he's was a minister, and he was reading, oh my gosh, I should have it's been so long since I've heard the story, but he was reading a book about how you could shift things with tuning forks, and or heard somebody talking or whatever, and he decided, oh my gosh, okay, we'll use tuning forks, and let's get he decided to do the colored, which nobody else pretty much had. And I don't even know if, you don't see them very often at all.
No.
And it does make it a lot easier to find your fork when they're colored. But he's passionate about tuning forks. His background is in ministry, so when he talks, he knows how to talk to a group of people, and so then they moved to Arkansas, so I went down there and took I think one of my final teacher classes there, and we went digging for crystals because Arkansas is where there's huge quartz mines. And I mean, I didn't go with David, but me and a couple other students went, and it was really fun. We came back with like a bucket of, they give you a big pile of mud, and you just start grabbing through,
and there's crystals inside.
yeah. And so you kind of don't know what you get till you get home, and you can like clean them all up really good. So, and now they're in North Carolina. So I did take one class down there with them, and then I pretty much finished up.
Well, I was looking around for tuning fork, teachers, and I came across David, just doing research on the internet, and then I looked up a bunch of teachers, and I just sort of yours kind of stuck out, like airplane pilot, teacher, and I was just wanted to contact you and learn more. So that's how I met Susan. I just contacted Susan and said, would you like to teach me? I'm in Australia. Can we do it all through Zoom? And that's how I became a practitioner. And we brought in one of my colleagues that I was working with in doing gong sessions in corporate, and she was suffering from cancer. So she was a great sort of test to, work with Josie as a client, while Susan was teaching me with the forks. And then once I became qualified, I bought a whole bunch of forks and that type of thing. But I guess like if I just want to sort of because we're just still waiting for Chris to come, so I might as well
Chris has arrived, actually.
Oh, Chris has arrived. Oh, yeah. Great. Fantastic. All right. Well, how about we start a live session with Chris? We'll just talk to Chris beforehand and have a bit of a chat with him, and then we'll get Susan to do a live session, and then we'll have a chat to Chris and talk about what he's experienced. Hey, Chris.
Hello.
That's Lee.
Hey, Chris. My name's Leith, and I'm from Australia, and we're doing a live session. Thanks for coming in. I really appreciate you coming in to doing a live session. Susan said you're a musician.
Yes, sir.
Great. So what sort of music do you play?
Well, I play various instruments, but primarily I do songwriting, hip hop music.
Awesome.
So that's my niche.
Yeah, great. And so you haven't experienced a tuning fork session before?
I have not.
So we're really talking about the power of sound and tuning forks and how they can help people through various challenges that people have, whether it's from emotional challenges or physical or mental sort of challenges. And we've got a bunch of students here, and we've asked Susan to do a live tuning on you. Was it a balancing? What was it called? What are we doing?
Yeah, we're doing a 10-minute tuning.
A 10-minute tuning. So we want to check in with you beforehand and ask you, if are you experiencing any challenges at the moment? Have you got any stress or any physical challenges that you're dealing with at the moment?
Not particularly. I guess just the daily I don't want to call it a challenge, but just maintaining balance every day. That's one of my primary focuses. And with everything that goes on and trying to take on new things, it can be challenging to keep things balanced within life itself. But that's the main thing. All else is relatively well.
Absolutely. And I suppose as our frequencies are moving up and down, sort of, to regulate that in a way that we're feeling grounded and balanced is key, because, things knock us off our pedestal all the time. There's a lot of stresses in life, and so I'll hand it over to you, Susan, and yeah, and let's start.
Okay. And so you can have a seat. We'll see how this spot works.
Put the phone there.
Okay.
All right.
Let me just let you turn and see what happens if I let me move you over just a little bit. Okay, I think that will work because I want to be able to let you guys see. So I like how we've talked to him first. So I really like asking, okay, just notice how your body feels right now. And then we can ask him in different stages if you want to see how it's going. So I do have regular flat crystals that I can use on the body, but there's a guy in Germany that John Boyu found who has crystal feet. And so I can use it and move, I can move it around and do everything I want without having to hold. Otherwise, I'm like this. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm just going to kind of, well, let's check his chakras. So I'm going to turn you that way. So I'm just going to hold my hand. Okay, so the sacral, the second chakra, the fourth, the heart, and the third eye were pretty close. So, the sacral is about emotional. The heart, of course, is about love to self and others, period. We got the third eye of the intuition. So we're going to check the chakras again after we do this to see the difference. So I couldn't find my angel tuners. Angel tuners are really high pitched. It's a set of 3, and they're like these, but these aren't as high pitched as those. But I'm just going to kind of move through. You can use them to clear the energy in a room. You can use them between a client to clear, and you can kind of just use it kind of like smudging. So sometimes when I do a sound bath, I'll have somebody at the door with these high-pitched tuners going through and just kind of moving through their energy and clearing them off before they come in the room. And so we can do that with them also. Now the ones I'm going to use right now are sun and moon, and they're very balancing because of, you got the masculine, the feminine, and so Krista, I just want you to pay attention to how you feel before and after, and if you notice any difference, then just let us know. So I'm just going to comb through the energy. And if I only had these, I could do a whole session with these things. I could open up his chakras, I could do whatever, but we have all the tools, so we're going to use everything. Okay, then I'm going to, since I have the body tuners and all the colors, this is the root, and I'm going to do it up the back. So go right on his tailbone. And one thing to know about using the body tuners, we talked about nitric oxide, is you only have to do a point 2 times because it runs on a cycle. So it puffs up and then it comes back down. So if you're doing the same point over and over again, then you kind of defeated the purpose. You're working too hard. And another thing is tennis balls. This is a little dog one, but they're perfect for hitting the body tuners. This one's, the hockey puck is a little too hard for it. It's just, you're going to get a tinny sound. They're better for the energy tuners. Okay, and we got the sacral. Oh, and one thing that I just did not do that is very important is letting them listen, because that's going to run through also. And I'll tell you a story. I was doing a session on somebody, and she was the hostess of our event. It was in St. Croix, and we ran out of time and we couldn't, she wanted to experience, my one friend was doing shiatsu and I was doing the tuning forks, and we didn't have enough time for her to get an individual session. So I said to my friend, why don't you start working on the lower areas, and I'll do the balancing, and then as soon as I'm done, then you can, do the rest of the shiatsu session. And so one of them said, "Oh, do you hear that tone?" And the other one goes, "Yeah, I hear a tone." And so because the one had her hands on the body while I had the forks on the body, they both were picking up the same tone. They hummed it to each other, and they're like, "Yeah, that's the tone." And so they kept going, and I was done. I was already done, and I'm just standing off to the side. And it lasted for, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And then one of them would say, "Oh, it just kind of faded out." And the other one would go, "Yeah, it did." And then one of them would say, "Oh, it just came back in." I'm like, "Yeah, it did come back in." And then the shiatsu practitioner said, "Let me see where it's coming from." And she went, "It's coming from right here." And as soon as she touched her sternum, both of them, it stopped, because it was like she just touched a tuning fork and just ended it. But that was a wild experience. I mean, I've never had that. Well, I've never done that exactly again either. But it was pretty awesome. And also, something else I didn't do is you need to listen also. And that way you're in tune with what's going on. And you don't want to, I just did it kind of long or short. So sometimes if you do it too fast, your ear's like, "Wait, I needed more." So, it's like a good breath in and out or two in the ear, and then the next ear. And go over the top of the head, for like the two halves of the brain, the corpus callosum, as opposed to going in the front. I can tell the difference, if you go one way or the other. Oh, okay. Okay, this was one of the closest. I bet if we check this chakra, it just opened up.
I felt like I had like some perhaps closure with my root chakra.
Uh-huh.
And when you did that first one, I felt something immediately.
Well, we could check his chakras as soon as I'm done with this, and I bet they're probably all open. I'm just gonna do one more here.
Unfortunately, we can't hear the tuners or the tuning forks, but
Oh, yeah, you'll hear the other ones.
yeah, we get a sort of visual of it.
Yeah, these ones are, they're so hard to hear. But I have a CD that has the solfeggio that you can get online, and it has at the end, it has some of the body tuners.
So what set of body tuners are you using?
These are the solfeggio right now.
They're the weighted ones.
Yeah.
With the crystal feet.
Yeah. So that one's Larimar.
Yeah.
And one more. Okay, so David did not do a crown chakra fork, because the crown is basically off the body, and he kept trying to decide what he wanted to do, whether 6 or 7, and he couldn't make up his mind. And then he was at an airport, and there was a magazine, like a science magazine there, and it said the power of 6, and he bought it, and he read about it, and he's like, oh, okay, that's I'm only doing 6. So what you can do is you can use the ohm tuner up there, and let's see.
So the ohm tuner is something that was interesting, because that was the main one I used. You can use this on every single acupressure point, as well as in it's one of these tools that you'd have in your tool belt, and you can just use instead of acupressure, it's acupuncture, and you can use it on any single meridian.
Okay, so let's just because he had that big jump, let's just see what his heart chakra's doing. Okay, it's open, but notice, I just want you to pay attention to how it's not moving real strong. So we'll see how it all looks at the end of this. All right, so now these are the energy forks. These you will hear. And then the Taki Puck helps with those. And so, do you hear that? Maybe not.
No.
The higher ones.
What frequency is the fork you're using there, Susan?
That one was
That was the unweighted.
Yeah, that's 396. And you know, all these solfeggio numbers are, let's see, they all go up to 3, I believe it. I mean, when you figure them all out, they're all numbers of 3.
Yeah, 369, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, the normal technique is done on the table. And so sometimes if I'm in a hurry, I just do the chakras. In fact, sometimes I just do the back. But one of the techniques, especially on the table, is that you like join the 2 chakras together, like weaving them together, almost like you're making the helix of the DNA. And so, and you always hit the smaller fork with the larger fork. I know they're very, and then, you know, again, listen.
So one of the questions was, what's the difference between solfeggio and harmonic spectrum?
They're okay, the solfeggio is an older scale. Harmonic spectrum is the typical do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, te, do, and then this one is oh my gosh, it's
Also,
you, re, mi, fa, sol, la.
also too, the solfeggio series was developed from listening to hymns from the Gregorian monks, and that's how they were created. And this is particularly why I studied this form of tuning forks. So the reason why Susan's striking the tuning forks and having Chris listen to them and Susan's listening to is to generate that sympathetic resonance. So she's getting in tune with the tuning forks and with the client as well. So it's like a symbiotic relationship that they're developing, an intimate relationship they're developing through the sound. And it's always important to really just listen to the sound, because the sound will tell you, you'll hear the differences in pitch and change and all that sort of thing when you're working with the client in this sort of intimate relationship. And Susan's able to spin that tuning fork because there's a little grommet that's sitting on the end of the tuning fork, and so you're able to like hold the tuning fork and have it swing like that. And what Susan will be doing will be feeling for any sort of heaviness, sort of it's like a thick kind of they don't sort of spin as easy. So she'll be looking for those sort of can you explain that, Susan?
It's kind of a muddy feeling when like, and I notice it more when I like when you comb through the body's energy with them, then you'll like feel uh, kind of the stuck areas, and that's usually when I uh, realize, okay, there's something else I need to have done. And you might have to look around it because it might not be that the fork you're holding is what they need. It might be they need the body tuner, or let me think how David explains this. It's the body tuners are for when the stuff that came in through the etheric field, you didn't clean it up before it got there, and then it's now it's in the physical body. So you know, he looks at these as being way more powerful because you can clear the energy out of the etheric field, of the disharmony out of the etheric field before it gets into the body. Okay, so
Someone's just asked how to put you on the big screen, but I'm not sure how to do that.
oh, I've been on the tiny screen. Let's see. I can't remember how you do that. Okay, this is the hardest part of the whole technique, is getting all the hardest thing to learn is holding all the forks at one time.
Someone mentioned that Eileen McCusick only uses a couple of different forks. Eileen from Human Biofield said she only uses 2 forks now.
Oh, really? Because she's had more forks than David had, I thought. Okay, Chris, if you can spin this way. Watch out, there's a grid below your feet.
I'm tapping the screen, but I'm not sure how it's view, maybe the view, gallery, speaker. Is that better?
And different people read it different ways. Like for me, when it quits spinning and it starts going this way, then that chakra's finished. Some people, they hear the sound of the tone changes, and then they know if it needs more or not. Other people, it stops still. So it's just like using a pendulum. Different people read it different ways. So it's kind of the same way with the forks. It's very intuitive work. Though what I did like about some energetics for learning is that it gives you a place to start, and it gives you a technique that you can follow and use until you start to really understand how the forks work with you. Now, I had said earlier that you hit with the largest fork, hits the smaller ones, but with this technique, now that I'm just going from the top to the bottom, this is the activator fork. So this is the third eye fork, and that's going to be the one activating all the rest of the forks. Also, if you have a lot of hair and you touch the hair with the fork, it will often stop, so you have to be aware of that.
So one of the questions is how can you tell if the chakra has been cleared, balanced, or open?
Well, what I was explaining a moment ago, that for me, if it goes from the swinging position to the back and forth, chakra's done for the moment, at least. I mean, we might check and see that one is not spinning as equal to the others, and I might have to do something else, but right now it seems to me that, and it's different for everyone. You know, different people read it different ways, but that's my way of knowing. Okay, I have a few other things I'm going to do, but I want to check and see how these chakras are doing. I mean, okay, so the root's spinning really good. The second, which was closed, is equal to the root.
And you can see that pendulum swinging quite a lot, whereas before it wasn't swinging as aggressively.
Right, and some weren't at all. Now the heart's still a little bit, I mean, it's a little slower. Did you notice that?
Mm.
Let me get it out here. So here, let me do it this way. Okay, that's good. Okay, now I'm just gonna move the fork through the heart area and just see. Now I can feel it's a little not as flowing as moving through the rest of the areas. Is there anything you're holding in the heart area?
I was literally just thinking of that.
And often if you just ask a question to the client, it will shift the energy, just because sometimes they hadn't really spoke it or thought of it, or even given it any attention. So right now, let's see. Okay, now that moves like the others were moving. Okay, so now all right, we check the chakras, we check the chakras again. Okay, so I'm gonna do one thing that that I learned in John's class, and I'm gonna do one side, and then we're gonna ask Chris how that feels. And that is, and it's like so fast, and these are things you can do to yourself. If you get a tuning fork, you know, you can do your chakras. Of course, the back's really hard, but and you know, just hit the joints. Like one time will make a difference. So I'm gonna just let them hear. And I'm just gonna do this side of the body first.
Like travels down the arm. I like that.
Oh, good, yeah.
What were you feeling there, Chris?
Primarily the vibrations, but it's a very calming feeling and very relaxing.
I want to show all of you something, and now Chris has just been being worked on, so it might not be as effective, but I want you to take your wrists and just move them around and just notice how they feel, and then you're going to give me the wrist. Okay, so you can stop. All right, so whenever you have a skeptic, this is the skeptic killer right here, is you have them see how their wrist feels. And then I go around 2 times, because remember, we only do a point twice. Oh, and the point is like the size, well, of a American quarter or a 50-cent piece, which is about like that big around. So you don't have to be like right on the point. So if you're doing, you know, like if you're following meridians, I mean, if you're not exactly on the point with the needle, you know, it's not good. But with these, it's going to get to it, you know, and of course other areas, but. And if you don't like using your hand, you could put a tennis ball in your pocket and just bam, bam. And okay, now Chris, move both your wrists around. Tell us what you're
Cracking up.
Tell us what you feel.
My left wrist, it's like, I guess I shouldn't use the word fluid, but it feels more limber than my right one in this moment. Like my right wrist doesn't necessarily feel stiff, but my left wrist feels actually much looser.
Yeah, most people, almost to a person, will say it feels looser. And I had one person say
That's crazy.
it felt younger. I'm like, oh, well, that's a good one. Good one.
Well, that makes sense because it kind of suspends the cells. So, you know, from a cellular level, that kind of makes sense. So it's kind of the fountain of youth. What forks are you using there?
Well, these are the C&G, the 128, and this is, you know, this one isn't as powerful. It'd probably be better if I used, let me use this one. That are both closer, this one, closer to the same size.
and obviously you can use the was it 126 for the OM fork?
136.1, and
136.1, which is the OM fork. Yeah.
It's interesting. You mentioned how it's like the vibration suspends the cells. And I kind of thought to myself, like, wow, it feels like I don't even have a wrist right now. That's just like something I ran through my mind.
Yeah.
So I want you to stand up for just a moment. Okay. And just notice how both sides of your body feel now that we did the joints on one side. Do you notice any difference?
Still lighter on the left side,
Okay.
as far as like just my body weight and everything.
And I have done people where I've only done that, just one point on each joint, and they have already felt the difference. It's like, this is what I love about sound. It is so fast. So you're gonna sit down again. Face
So
the
you do
wall.
the other side, right?
The other side. Oh, and of course, since he's sitting this direction,
yes, you could do that. So someone's asked, so to save money, you could use the weighted fork and use different crystals for each chakra.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, you only need one fork. I use two because it's a lot faster.
And also too, when you're at the end, when you're using the two forks at the end of a session, if you strike those two forks and put it up to someone's ear, it's like a whole meditation, because that's the only thing that they can hear is the sound. So they can't even hear their own thoughts. The only thing that they'll hear is sound. And you can sort of run that completely out, and they can get a whole deep relaxation just from that. And usually we tend to finish in those areas of the, isn't that right, Susan?
And in the Soma classes, we always just used one fork, one fork. And then one day I was laying on the table and there were three of us working together. It was three teachers. And there was this guy from Canada who we'd never seen. He was never in any of the classes we were in before. And he had he whipped out two forks. We're like talking, it's like blah, 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 blah. And I was the one on the table, and he whips these two forks out and went like that. And I just shut up. I mean, it was the most amazing thing ever. And you, like Leith just said, you like, all thought just leaves your mind. And I told David, I said, let me show you something. And I did that. I go, you're going to sell twice as many ohm tuners now, because this is friggin' amazing. These are great for migraines, by the way. I don't get migraines, but I've worked on people that have had a migraine and it's like gone away. And they'll usually buy a fork after that. I'm just going to get head points while I'm here.
Please do.
It doesn't matter if you don't have crystal feet. You can just do it with the base of the fork.
What were we gonna say? Or I mean, Chris.
Wherever you need me to be. But I like how on the actual skull, I can actually feel the resonance between the different frequencies of the tuning forks there.
Oh, really? Yeah. Let's see. All right. This is a 132, and this is a 128. So they're really pretty close, but he could feel the difference.
Can you use clear crystal quartz to heighten the effect of the fork?
Well, crystal, all the other, like rose quartz is quartz, I mean, so crystal has all the colors. So yeah, you could just have clear quartz.
And there was a question asked, the Tibetan tingsha's, the bells, or the little symbols, which is the tingsha's, can they be used in a similar way in the aura as the tuning forks?
Oh yeah, I think any sound
Yep.
could be, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. With the tingshaws, they're like a little bit of the frequency is off, so it sort of makes a kind of resonant effect, but it's the tingshaws are really great for ending sessions as well.
Yes, that is true. And you know what? I did not go down the front with all the forks, so I'm going to do that real quick. And
Okay. Question was with the two forks on either side of the ears, are the forks the same hertz or different for entrainment?
no, they're different. That's why I go to the other ear. I do it, though John says you don't need to, but that's how we always did it at Soma. And this is like beautiful when all of the forks are playing. And I'm just kind of going around this whole field and then spin around, give me your back. Okay.
I don't know about that question, Sarah. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna ask Susan that one.
What's that?
Oh, it's just a question here that it doesn't need to be talked about. So with the energy forks you just used there, so using them all at once like you did, would that calculate the frequencies to add up to a complicated sequence?
Well, you should be getting, because these are the earlier forks, which you have, you know, John says that all the sounds of the universe are in one of these forks, that all the overtones are in them. And so he should be getting every possible frequency. And it's how'd you like that?
It was very nice. I don't know if it's because I've never experienced anything like that or it's that effective, but like I just I feel like I have a clean energy, you know, I feel centered, but you know, earlier I mentioned like seeking that balance in my daily life and I'm not really worried about it. I just feel very chill, feel very peaceful. My body feels amazing. I worked today. I was tired. I'm not tired anymore. So I feel great.
Great. And
Right.
speaking, it's funny because this fork just fell on the floor, and right where it landed, I have a zillion crystals in here, is this piece of quartz that I bought. Somebody was selling their entire quartz collection, and I was at a healing weekend, and every bed and countertop in the room at the hotel and the bathroom was full of clear quartz, and just a couple rose quartz. And so she had like anybody that wanted to come in and buy something in the room. And I zeroed in on this one piece, and I ran into kind of like my healing mentor. And I said, "Hey, Sandy, look at this piece." She goes, "I just was holding that for about a half hour." And that night I went to back to the room, and I was sharing a room, and I said, and this is right when I first started learning the tuning forks. I had just taken my first class, And I said, hey, let's try something. What if I go up your body with this crystal? Because it was like the size, right size for the spine. And Chris, I'll show you what we did. And so I did it to her, and then she did it to me. And I basically just, you feel it quite a ways, right?
Yeah, that is the perfect size.
Yeah. And so we just went, and you didn't have to go to every spot because the size of the crystal expands that vibration. And how you can really tell is this one piece, like if I'll do this right after I finish this and explain it.
I can still feel that in my tailbone.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm one that wakes up a lot in the night, and we both, did this on each other, and then we went to sleep. And the next morning, and I'm one that sleeps like 6 hours. The next morning, I woke up in the same exact position I went to sleep in 8 hours later. And I'm like, oh my God, I felt like I could have somebody do this all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's what I found out when I spoke to clients after sessions. They would say to me, I had the best night's sleep. And I think if you can help people sleep, because there's so many challenges with, sleep is so important. If you don't get enough sleep, it can affect your heart, and you can have a heart attack, if you're only having 3 or 4 hours sleep a night. So, and the stress that occurs from not sleeping is absolutely huge. So if you can help people to sleep more effectively and a deeper sleep, then they can definitely can definitely help people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How was that, Chris?
That was my favorite one so far. Really like that.
It's just so funny. I didn't even know that was like out. It was laying on the floor all by itself, like it was, I want to talk to this class. That was awesome.
I think
Okay, so
can I just say
yeah.
something based on that? So
Mhm.
once you start working with sound and you start to, tune to the client, tune to these sort of things, you'll notice that. Sorry, I just got to this. You'll find that you'll start to become more intuitive with all sorts of things. So just noticing that that drop next to the crystal and to use that crystal was quite key as well. I noticed.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got this little piece of cork, or a carnelian. So Chris, if you hold out your hand, so if I do this on your hand, I want you to notice how that feels. And now if I put this carnelian in, explain the difference.
The vibration feels different, but I just feel something different within.
Oh,
my
really?
core.
Well, you know what? That's the heart point for one reason. But also, it expands the energy or the vibration when you put like a crystal in there. So, so these ones are really awesome.
It's
to
like
use.
without the crystal, it's more so like it's like a pin, not a pinpoint, but it is focused more so in that one area than I can feel.
Right.
Radiating out.
While Chris is here, I wanted to show you how actually thinks this way, but I don't know if we can see, probably not.
Yeah, we can see perfectly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see the table? If you no. All right, let me get something higher. We have a drum. Put your hand on the drum. Let's see if that.
Should I take my rings off, or it doesn't matter?
Yeah, take the rings off. Okay, so I have a friend, the friend that does shiatsu. had done like 22 people in a week, and she was afraid she like ruined her thumb. So I said, well, come on over. Let me do your hand real quick. So move your hand like that, just so it's okay. Good. And I'm going to use 2 forks so we can do this faster. So I just went and did all the joints. And then I can just slide up here.
Could this be effective for people who have arthritis?
Yes. And okay, so one of the things that I do is not all the time, but sometimes, you know, if we have like a long bus ride to the hotel on a flight, because I fly international. So I will say, okay, does anybody have any aches or pains? And then I'll just go through the bus and work on whatever people are complaining about. And usually it's knees. And so, but one time this flight attendant said, oh, I've got arthritis in my pinky. And so I did her pinky, which takes, you know, like a minute or less. And then I didn't see her for 5 years. And I run into her in the crew room 5 years later. And she goes, remember when you did my pinky? And I said, yeah. She goes, it never bothered me again. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And one time I was working on somebody's knees, and she kept going, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I go, well, believe it. And she goes, I just can't believe it. I'm like, well, it's happened. Believe it. So the next day, flip your hand over. I said, how's your knee doing? She goes, I don't believe it. It's feeling good. I'm going to have to call the doctor and get a shot. I go, what? I said, why? And she goes, well, because so it doesn't hurt. I go, it's not hurting. It hasn't hurt since before I worked on it. I said, believe that it happened. And I'm sure she went to the doctor and got a shot. But anyway. And then every once in a while I'll fly with somebody, hey, you got your forks with you? And I'm like, yes, I do. Can you work on my shoulder again? Or my neck or whatever? And but the most amazing one that I had happen on a flight is a flight attendant spilled hot béarnaise sauce on her. Okay, move.
Wow. Normally, if I make a tight fist like that, my knuckles crack and nothing. Can you do my right pinky?
Your right pinky? No, you really do left.
And this would be particularly good for you, Chris, if you're playing guitar or something like that.
Say that again?
It'd be good if you're playing guitar. Do you play guitar?
Intermittently. I have a guitar. I know guitar, but I don't play it that often.
Yeah.
But I have a flute coming in, and it's probably going to help with that for sure. But I actually broke my hand a couple years ago, and so occasionally.
This hand?
Yeah, and so my pinky will really, really bother me.
So anyway, she spilled this sauce, and I didn't hear about it till about 30 minutes later, and another flight attendant says, hey, you know, so and so really burned herself bad. And so I was the relief pilot on that trip. So I said to the captain, I go, hey, do you mind if I go back there? And so I started to do Reiki on her. And, you know, sometimes with Reiki, it hurts more before it starts to calm down, and she just couldn't bear it. And so I go, all right, hang on, let me go get the tuning forks. So she had it was burned around her watch. It was way up the arm like this. And then she had a blister like that big around, and it was up that high. It looked horrible, like painful. And I mean, she was like in tears. And anyway, did I do this one? I didn't. Okay. Anyway, a month later, I get a card from her, and she said, you know, the pain went away immediately and never came back. The only time she had pain was when she did go to the doctor, and the doctor said it was a deep 2nd-degree burn. And she said the only time it hurt is when the nurse took the Band-Aid off. And she said also, she said she barely had a scar. And I've used where like I hit my, you know, something hit your head and you get that sharp pain. So I just went and grabbed the fork and put it here, and like instantly gone. Now I didn't, like when I did the other side of his hand, I kind of just slid through everything because, you know, it's going to go through to the other side because, you know, the hands are really small. Okay. And because I got it on this drum, you can hear it in the sound is enhanced.
I think the feeling's enhanced too. Like I can feel it.
Oh, really? Okay. Because of the drum, you think?
In theory, or it's just that awesome.
And when I work on knees, usually like a acupuncturist, they call it the ring of fire. And I'll just go around the whole knee, you know, and sometimes, you know, you don't know, they might say, oh, but the pain's right here. Yeah, but you know, we'll just get the whole thing. So I just kind of go around the whole knee a couple times, and that usually covers it. Now, I've my brother-in-law has really bad knees. He had to have one of them replaced, but he actually did get relief from this. I mean, it didn't last, you know, for a long time, but it lasted days, which is, if your knees are really bad, that's pretty good. And so he bought a fork, but you got to use the fork, or he didn't buy it, I gave it to him. Saying you have to use it. And
yeah, that's great. That's fantastic to hear those scenarios that you've had with people out in the public as well. And so how do you feel, Chris, after all that session that you've gone through? Have you noticed a difference?
I do. It's just, so I guess I'll start with my hand as the most recent thing. So a lot of times like my pinky and sometimes my right ring finger are a little stiff, and it feels great right now. I don't have any like of a tingling sensation, feels good. And then overall, as far as my person, feel calm, feel relaxed, feel centered. You know, I just feel really balanced and at peace. You know, I feel like I'm right here, right now, and I guess I feel recharged. You know, I don't feel necessarily exuberantly energetic, you know, jumping off the walls, but I feel different than I did initially, and it's like in an energetic way. That's what I'm trying to convey. I do feel something, and I do enjoy it. It's like I'd want to do this again personally.
So you feel calm, you feel at peace, centered, and yeah, so that's great. So that's really good results, I think. And so like because when you first came in, you were saying you know, you wanted to feel a bit more grounded. Do you feel a little bit more grounded now?
Definitely, yeah.
Mm.
feel present where I am right now. I don't feel I didn't feel necessarily like discombobulated, but I felt like the worry, the thought of trying and wanting to balance is something that contributed to my imbalance. And
Yep.
where we are now, it's quite subtle internally.
Great. And I think that bringing you back to a more present state is really key, because a lot of people are in the in the future or the past, or and to actually bring you back into that point is a great reminder of where we actually need to be more often. So that's great results, and yeah, appreciate your time for coming in and having this healing from Susan as well. So thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys.
Thank you. So yeah, let's we can talk to Susan for a bit longer, and we've got another half an hour here. And I think the students probably want to ask a few questions, but before we do that, let's talk a little bit more about tuning forks. And yeah, so
yeah, I'll sit down. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I wanted to tell a couple more things that I've done.
Great.
And that is, also sinuses. That's another thing and especially if you use like an essential oil, like peppermint or Typhu oil or what, and then hit the points here with the fork. That really helps. Okay. So John has another book, John Beaulieu, and it's called Sound Healing and Values Visualization. And it has a lot of the techniques in it that he teaches in his class. And so it's really kind of fun reading this book. I'm like, oh, I remember when we learned this, And one of the things that I haven't done in a while, I need to do it on myself for things that I shouldn't be eating. And it was about working with addictions. And I did this technique, which I'm not going to explain. If you get the book, you'll read about it. But a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in like 40 years that I knew as a child had been smoking since she was 12. And she says, I got to quit smoking. And I said, well, I know this technique, and we did it in the car. And it's basically, you think about how the like the cigarettes make you feel, and like the positive thing that it makes you feel, and then you ring the tones and let them hear it and know that they can have that feeling without the cigarette. And she told me that she didn't smoke for months, and then something happened and she got smoking again. I go, well, call me up and I can do it over the phone. We can do it again. But she didn't, so the cigarettes must have won out. But anyway, but it is pretty amazing technique. I've used it on other things. But I just wanted to talk a minute about some of the other things I've done with the forks, and the things, like I said, that I carry these. And then I have the sun and the moon, and then Venus and Jupiter are awesome because you got love and joy. And they sound really, they have a really nice tone. And the sun and the moon sound like this.
Unfortunately, we can't hear the sounds of the tuning forks.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
for
anyway,
some reason.
So what's awesome about these little forks is you can just throw them in your pocket, even, or your bag or whatever. And I have and you can take them out and you can tap them like really lightly and do energy work without anybody knowing you're doing anything. So I was in there's a church in the cathedral in Mainz, Germany. Have you heard of Hildegard von Bingen, the German nun? She lived 1,000 years ago, and she wrote music, and she healed with sound and music and crystals and herbs. And I know she used to have to go to Mainz, and I figured the oldest part of the cathedral, she probably it would have probably been a small chapel then, and she probably would have been in there. So I would go in there and I'd light a candle, and John always says the sound goes to where your intention is. So my intention would be to energize and all these prayers that were lit in the candles, and I would just sit there and I just like lightly tap it. And because, you know, in church, you know, sometimes hear bells or something, nobody ever looked around to go and see what was that. I mean, often I'd be by myself, but if somebody else was in there, if I could just tap it real lightly and then put my intent of enhancing these prayers, that was just one of my favorite places to go. And another time in Germany, I had seen on the news in the States that there was a crop circle outside of Munich, and I was going to be going to Munich in a couple of days. So I called a friend and said, hey, can we go down there? And we did. There were 4 of us, and we kind of separated, and we're hanging out in different parts of the crop circle. And we were getting ready to leave when we met all back up, and I said, hey, you guys want a sun and moon balancing? And they said, yeah. So I took these, and I just went like across their front chakras and back chakras, and then I just okay, all right, I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye. So I just like combed through their energy. I mean, it took like a minute, and a minute and a half to do. And when I finished, the 3 of them, I turned and there was like 10 people lined up. I'm like, okay. So I did all of them. And this one person told my friend that she had been having just a horrible time at work, and she didn't know what to do, and she was just worried about it the whole time. And the minute I started, it just, like she said, it just blew away. It was gone. And then there was a lady who, my mom's from Germany, and she just kind of reminded me of my grandmother. She was kind of staying back a little bit. She was a little shy. And I just kind of held these up, and I'm like, and she said, yeah. And so I did her back first. And when I got to the front and went through, her face just like, it just, you could just see the expanse of the energy. And I go, you feel that? And she's like, yeah. And she gave me this hug, and it was, and to this day, I believe my grandmother was there, or she represented her, you know, and it was just one of the most powerful experiences. And it's all from just carrying these little tiny forks in a pocket or a purse or whatever, and you know, you just find things they can do. You have no idea what they might be doing. So
that's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And Susan, the power of sound is just, I mean, it can be seconds, you know, with the smallest sort of tuning fork, or you know, I've seen, you know, even with the gong, like 5 minutes of the gong, it changes people's lives, and you do see a difference on you know, the facial expressions, the color of them. Those are sort of indications to look at when you're working with sound, is to notice those sort of minute sort of micro gestures and things when working with clients. But and definitely with you know, you can do this anywhere, anywhere in the world. You can just have these tools and be able to just use them whenever people need them. And I think that's key to look at. It's not just about just getting the clients to your house and and charging them. You can actually take these tools and work on people in all sorts of situations. And obviously, once you've worked with these people and you've done these sort of things, that they're happier. They're probably more enthusiastic to come forward and to not be shy, all those sort of things, because once they hear the sound, they connect to source, basically, and that's key. It gets them out of that sort of worry, the stress, and that type of thing. And obviously with tuning forks, I just wanted to mention, I've actually was going to read something, but I thought, no, it's probably best just to explain what tuning forks do. But basically, you've got one oscillating cell and another oscillating cell, and when you strike the tuning fork's oscillating. The cells are oscillating, but after a while they start to oscillate together, and that's called sympathetic resonance or resonance. And so once that happens, the body starts to sync up to the fork, and with the obviously with the energetic side of things, you can just ring a fork in around the area, and that sort of comes through the auric field into the body and into the organs and the cells, and sort of works on there. So that's basically how tuning forks work. But what we'll do now is we'll open up to some questions for Susan from everyone, and I'll just put everyone on gallery. And how do I do this? I'm just going to figure it out. No, that's not it. Close. This is the first time I've actually run a session through Zoom, so I'm still working out how to organize this. So I'll take everyone off mute. And just a second. So how did you go with Chris there, Susan? Just while I'm trying to figure this out.
I hadn't done a 10-minute session in a long time, so I thought it went really well. I felt, to me, he's like the perfect. When I knew I wanted somebody, he was the only person I asked, because I just knew he'd be perfect for this. He'd be able to explain what he felt. He'd be able to, he hadn't done it before, and he'd be enthusiastic. So I thought it went really well, and he he got good feedback and good responses. So
yeah. Can anyone hear me? I'm just trying to unmute people. I'm just unmuting. I'm just asking people if I can unmute. I think it's something will pop up on the screen, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can everyone hear me? Who can hear me? Michelle, Kim, Maritza.
Can I quickly ask Susan a question while we're doing this?
Go for it.
Hey, Susan, when you mentioned before you were lying on the bed and all the other people were doing little clearings on you, and you said the guy whipped out the tuning forks and stuck them close to your ears, so you shut up. What were they? What frequency were they?
They were the 136.1, the ohm tuners.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah.
And
So basically you could, oh, sorry. I was going to say, basically, if you had a kit, you could just have the C and the G, and an OM, and you'd be pretty set, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And oh, another thing I wanted to tell you guys, like when I went up his back initially with the I was teaching a student, and it was just me and her, and I didn't have a person at that moment, so I said, you know, I go, I'll have you do my spine. We were doing the spine technique. And I laid down, and I had like about at the heart area, this, like I had it happen like a couple times where it felt like the muscle unraveled. It just like, and it just binds up like that. And I'm like, oh. And I thought, I'm not going to say anything to her because she was a massage therapist, and I figured she'd want to get in there with her hands. And so I didn't say anything. And when she put the first tuning fork on my tailbone, I could feel it coming up. I could feel the energy coming up to the point where the blockage was. So it was about like, you know, that far. She did the next tuning fork, and I could feel it. Actually, it didn't come all the way up. It came up part of the way. The next tuning fork, I could feel it coming up more. And by the time she got to the third tuning fork, it had released, and I was sleeping. I mean, it was like the best thing ever. And that's it just how something so subtle that was, you know, like over a foot away from where the issue was could make that much of a difference. It was awesome.
Cool.
Okay, does anyone else want to ask a question?
Yes, I did have a question. Susan, what would be the best set for using on the auric field? I know the ohm weighted one is good for all the chakra points, etc. But like for the auric field, you mentioned like the colored tuning forks. I think the solfeggio set.
Yeah, those are really really nice, and you can, you know, mix them up. I mean, like I said, I travel with the C and G, but it gives you a lot more variety. And then have Leith or me show you how to hold all of them, and then it's really nice. It's beautiful. Listen to that. But you could do it with the two forks. It just depends on, you know, what all you want to do and expand to. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'll what we'll do is we'll run some sessions, and people can come along, and we can do some instrument playing around and all that sort of stuff. We can use tuning. I'll bring in my whole solfeggio tuning fork set, and we can do some demonstrations and that type of thing on a Sunday or something in Gold Coast and Brisbane.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool, Lee, to do that. Then we get to experience what it's like, and to feel into those stuck areas. I just muck around with forks at home, and I do them all over myself, and I'm thinking, I can't feel or hear any difference, and I'm sure I'm not that clear in all my chakras. So it would be really nice to just be able to experience that with other people.
Yeah. And obviously these are sort of base learnings. If you want to go on to do some professional learnings, you can. I've put a link in the website to David House's website through Susan, and you know, you can buy tuning forks there. You can also buy tuning forks on the Australian Sound Healers Association website as well. I've just got a question here from Kim. She's asked if we can do any harm while learning how to use them.
any what?
Any harm?
Oh, any harm? Oh, I was just going to tell you another story that happened to me when I was working with students. And I had two students, and I had this knot, like, or, you know, in my back, like kind of near the shoulder, just below the shoulder. And I thought, oh man, this would be perfect. So I said, okay, I'm going to lay down. Here's 2 forks for you. Here's 2 forks for you. And they were on either side of me. So the plan was one would work in this half of the back with 2 forks, and the other one would work on this half of the back with 2 forks. Now, the mistake I made was telling them that I had this issue. And so they decided, oh, well, we all must go there. So 4 forks were like here in this issue I had. And I swear to God, it felt like a volcano was erupting. I could feel the muscle. I could feel it build up into this giant knot. At least it felt like a giant knot. I'm like, back away, back away. And then we had to work on now getting it back to normal. And so, you know, I had, I think 1 tuning fork, you know, I had them work like around there. And then we actually, it ended up going away completely, but that was intense. And I'll tell you, when I first started learning, I had a friend that had this issue that she had with her hip that she had for years, and it was mainly an energetic, you know, it was more of a emotional issue. And I was like bound and determined, I am going to help her heal that. I mean, I tried it in different ways, and I was like, I got these forks, I'm going to help her. And I overdid. And that person was turned off of forks for a long time. I mean, and so the thing I've learned from sound is a little does a lot. I mean, you don't have to overdo anything. That's why I said, you know, 2 times on a point is all you need. And what I was working on with her was the energy tuners. I did use the body tuner some, but I was like, and I did this with myself once too. I was, had an emotional heart issue going on, and I decided I'm going to like clear it out. Well, I kept going and going. I thought it felt like a surgeon had been in and just ripped the heart right out. I mean, it was like I could feel like a giant hole in here. And I mean, I thought I did damage because it just felt so weird. But you know, it took a while for it to feel like normal again. And so yeah, basically overdoing it. I mean, nobody was damaged. It was more psychological damage that happened. So do you have anything about that, Lee?
Yeah, I think that there's like a point where you know, there's an intention, but there's also wanting to help, but there's also, you know, and obviously when you're doing tuning forks, you're actually doing the work. But I think there's a point where it can run into I'm healing them, and or the ego, or you know, and that can kind of be a fine line. So I think intuitively you sort of can do too much, and that's just kind of that pushing rather than allowing for it to energetically come through you. I think we'll talk a little bit more about that in the gong space, in the gong trainings, but it's basically just opening up and allowing it for you to be the channel for it to come through. And you'll see contraindications of how the client looks and feels, and you'll know when to you know, it's a balance, isn't it? Really, yeah.
I have a question. I would like to ask, how is it for you holding the tuning forks? Was it for you like a build-up you had to get used to holding the forks as the frequency runs through you as well? And how long can you work for, you know?
It kind of dissipates at the stem. You feel it a little bit, but not a whole lot. So It's not too bad. And the thing that most people have the hardest time with, there's a whole technique about hitting the fork. So like one time, I don't know if you heard it clang together, you can hit it too hard, or you can hit it not enough. It's like, that's why the tennis ball is awesome, because it's like the right texture. It's like a texture like your hand. And so, and if you, it's kind of a bounce. So, and some, you know, I'll feel it a little bit down here, but it's, I mean, I guess I'm so used to it, I don't even notice that it's happening. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. And also, how often do you see the same person coming to you, you know, to come back for another
Well,
session?
I like to think they did so well that they don't come back. But
That's good.
I tell them, you know, like a couple of weeks, you know, if they're like regulars, you know, because you gotta let it move, you know, it's gotta, like if somebody says, oh, I still feel that, and I'm saying, well, okay, but you know, that's all we're gonna do for today. So let's see how you do tomorrow. And usually people will kind of feel when they need to come. You know, I have a fairly regular client that is like, oh, you know what, I need to come now, and she'll call me.
And how much would you charge, Susan, for per client?
Well, I'm on the, my prices are really low compared to most, and so I charge like 85, but I mean, I probably should be charging 100 or more. So
That's American dollars.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And oh, there's one other thing, especially for the person that already has a fork, that is like the first thing I ever learned is right after I started taking the classes. I was on an overnight in Phoenix, and I went to this Mexican restaurant and must have had some bad Mexican food or something. You know how you wake up like an hour later and you're like dying. And I'm like looking, I've got my bag ripped apart looking for Alka-Seltzer or something. And I'm like, what do I have? What do I have? And I'm like, I've got my tuning fork. So this is what I did. I just, I mean, and a lot of stuff I've learned has just been, well, let's try something. In fact, most of it. So I just kind of, you know, let it run its whole cycle. I'm not going to let it run its whole cycle for this demonstration. So I went kind of like the 4 directions. And then I took it and I held it off, and I went in a clockwise direction like your digestive system goes. And in under 2 minutes, the nausea was gone. And I just held it like a, you know, like a inch or 2 off the body, and I could feel it. And you know, I had the holes, you hold the holes pointing, it's a little more powerful. So that's why I don't have them listen like this, I have them listen like that. So so anyway, that was awesome. And
yeah, sorry.
and so sometimes, like when I go to bed or in the morning or whatever, when I'm just laying down, I'll just take a, you know, you take a crystal, or these have the feet, but actually a crystal is a little better because it's like a bigger one. It spreads it out so it doesn't take as long. And so I just kind of go around the whole abdomen and, you know, circle all the way in. And then after I do that, then I do this, and you will feel the lightness like way out here. It feels like $1 million. I mean, it is awesome. I think I'll do that tonight. I haven't done it in a while, so maybe that'll get me to sleep enough.
Also, another question I've got from Kim is, can you use the tuning forks in distance healing or over Zoom? How does that work?
I have done it. And now I have the CD that I did with the solfeggios. It's called Dimensional Pathways, and there's two pieces, and they're each 30 minutes. And one is just the solfeggios. The second one is solfeggios and the DNA tuners. And then at the end, I play the sun, moon, and earth tuners. Oh, and I do all three, or all the tuners. And so now I just tell them, go listen to that. And because the intention, you can put the intention in. And oh, and that was another thing that I meant to tell you when I was saying that I would play the tuning forks in that church. John said the sound goes to where the intention is. So my intention is to light up those candles, and that's where the sound's going to focus. So same thing with even though those pieces were created with the intention that whoever listens to them is going to benefit. So, but I have done them some over the phone. Sometimes you get the distortion. So that's one problem.
And I guess you can sort of, just do the tuning forks with this person in mind,
Yeah.
and it will transmute through time and space to that person.
Well, and like some people have like a little bear or a doll, and they do it. And oh yeah, I did it one time. I had these scarves that somebody that was passing, and so her friend called me and said, hey, she's about ready to go. I go, okay, I'll do a quick tuning. And so I laid out the different colored scarves for the chakras and did it that way. But yeah, I believe you can do it distantly, but it is also beneficial when they can actually
hear.
Yeah. So we're walking into quite an interesting realm here of just doing distance healing through intention and through the tuning forks as well. And so, there's, we're living in a quantum soup of pure potentiality, and anything's possible through time and space, because, if you look at, we're all connected, and, we're all in this kind of thing together. It sort of makes sense. And especially through intention, you can directionalize the sound to the person. And that's in a group session, that's in one-on-one sessions, you can do that. And obviously where the eyes go, the intention moves as well. So you can direct. So if you're looking at someone while playing sound, the sound will go through the eyes into that area. I mean, we're looking in a quantum field here, but if you study quantum physics and all those sort of things, you'll start to realize that this is all possible, distance healing, and we're not limited to just one space. And I think becoming more creative, becoming more sort of looking at different ways we can use sound is going to take this to the next level of our practitioner work, because we could potentially do healings for people in different countries. We don't have to have these people come to us or us go to these people as well. So definitely there's a lot of options there, but I'd like to leave it there with this session, this tuning fork session. I thank you very kindly for giving your time, Susan. I know that if there was you called in sick from flying, so hopefully someone got the other job to take.
Well, you know what? They didn't call me and say that they needed me and they were using my sick time. So, but I've got two 2 sound baths tomorrow and then one on Monday. So
Great.
I crammed everything all in here.
Beautiful. So thank you very much for your stories and bringing Chris in as well. It's been a wonderful session. We've learned so much about tuning forks and how we can use these tuning forks to help other people and ourselves as well. And don't forget, we can use these tuning forks on ourselves. So yeah, I hope this gives everyone a great sort of base level into starting to use tuning forks in their sound therapy sessions. And we'll be popping this video in the chat box. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for coming along and for asking your questions. There was a few technical challenges, but next time we'll work through these even better for the next one. So thank you all for coming along, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Susan.
Thank you.